Hello and welcome to the Gone Traveling Podcast, where we are looking at the BKT EuroCup. We are actually on national team break on the road to greatness. But of course, we got to have a podcast. So what we did was we kind of wanted to kind of catch up on the awards. First of all, with me, as always, Sergio Llebres. Sergio, how you doing?
Hi, David. Well, another week, but without EuroCup basketball.
Yes, without EuroCup basketball. But we, like I said, we wanted to get a podcast out there. There's three awards that are given out every year. There's the Rising Star, there's the Coach of the Year, and there's the Most Valuable Player. And so we wanted to kind of give like our opinions of the front runners of those competitions. There have been a couple of moves. Yeah, there's also national team games going on. FIBA EuroCup, FIBA EuroBasket qualifiers, but also qualifiers in other continents. But I think we're going to kind of focus on the European competitions. So let's start off with probably the easiest of the awards, and that's the Rising Star. So I mean you know I'll let you go ahead, and then maybe we could talk about some of the other ones who. There's a couple other ones who, sort of outside chances, but let's hear who's the favorite.
There's some
Unless
guys.
you're going to shock me, I have an
Uh,
idea who's coming.
this award is sponsored by a German team. As you know, we got to talk about two players that you're following very closely this year, Ben Saraf and Noah Senge. Both of them are giving the team a lot of things very in a very positive way, but also unexpected. We know that they are very good, but the steps they are doing, and they are like burning stages very quickly, and they are going up uh, very quickly in the draft, in the mock drafts. So they are the two rising stars for me. I have them like tied because I can go for anyone that are the both of them. Surely there are another names that are very impressive in the EuroCup. We can talk about, if we can say that Jan Montero, for example, is young with 21 years, is
Well,
something.
John Montero, and actually, I'm kind of surprised that you don't have Montero first because he's actually my
Yeah,
clear number one. He's actually my clear number one,
but
and
I,
and but he counts as in the Rising Star. So and that's why I
I
really
know.
picked him. Um, the thing this is his first time that he's playing at this level. The 6.2 assists to 1.8 turnover. That's a 3.4 assist turnover ratio. And he's doing it. He's not shooting well from 3-point range, but it's a stacked team, but he's really showing that he can lead the team. So I'd be interested though. Who do you have of the two? Let's say right now, let's say the end of the season was right now, and we were voting the two Ulm guys. Who would you have finishing ahead? Essing or
Uh,
Saraf?
w- I would say, if the season was longer, I would go with Noah, because I think he has a lot of margin to grow in a very short term. But I think Ben Saraf is the guy that determines the rhythm of the team, the guy that determines the style, and also the guy that leads the team in stats. I think there's an easy way to go for him, but I got Noah in a little bit longer way.
I actually have Noah right now, even. I think,
Mhm.
especially he's been helped by his 3-point
Yeah,
accuracy, getting rebounds despite the lack of physicality. He's actually got a higher PIR in fewer minutes
17 PIR.
than Saraf. 17 PIR compared to 14.2 in fewer minutes. And he doesn't control the game, obviously, but he's been more consistent, in my opinion, than Saraf. Saraf will, you know, will go for, longer stretches where um, he's not he's not really helping the team that much.
Yeah.
He's
He
also
also,
not hitting his threes. So that's why I actually have a saying.
yeah, he
I have,
also dealt with some injuries, and that's kind of
yep,
for
yep.
his development or the way that he can show how he can impact, and also the continuity. In these awards, continuity is key, and Essenge is like the synonym of continuity. So
Yeah. So those are I'd say the top three. Other guys, do you have anybody else? I,
yeah,
I have a couple other names that throw out there, but here,
I
see what.
I I would like to mention stats are not the biggest thing for an 18-year-old, but Joan Beringer from Cedevita Olympia, I like him a lot.
Mhm. Yeah.
He recently got a professional contract, so he won it his way. And also, I gotta go with, of course, Sergio de la Rea, named by Sergio Scarolo for the FIBA Windows. We will be see
We'll get to that in a couple
play.
of minutes.
Yeah, he will compete for a spot in the EuroBasket 2025. And if you let me, another name that are my second top three, Salun Yang from Cento. I think those three guys are very very talented in every position. I mean De La Rea in the point guard, Salun Yang in the forward position a little bit, and then Beringer in the paint. So
I'd have Niang actually from Trento. I'd have him
yeah.
fourth right now. And and as of now, I think I would still have Berengier
Mhm.
ahead of De La Rey, um, but
Yeah.
kind of dependent on how much De La Rey is able to continue what he's been doing. He's had two games of double digit points. He had 5 and 5 in the game against Cedevita. So there's room there. But
Yeah.
I still think that it's really a three-man race, and in my eyes, it's really um, Montero's Montero's award to lose. Let's move to the coach of the year.
Hmm.
Uh, and do you want to go first, or do you want me to go first?
You go first. I'm curious.
The first name that I wrote down was Alessandro Magro from Wolves. He's a new coach, a totally revamped team, and they took some time to get on a roll, and they are on a roll right now. The problem with Coach of the Year is it's hard to say. You're unaware how the team is going to finish at the end of the season. If Wolves now crash and lose 5 in a row and don't make the playoffs, obviously this looks like a really bad pick. You know, but as given the sort of status of the teams right now, I'd say he's actually one of my he's the first guy that I wrote down, first name that I wrote down. And we kind of talked about this really briefly beforehand. For me, it's kind of hard to say that a coach of the year. It's kind of hard to name a guy who's basically in charge of a EuroLeague level team.
Yeah.
So that's Pedro Martinez, and that's obviously Dejan Radonjic, from Bahcesehir. Those are the two guys that, obviously those are in our eyes, I think the best two teams. And they also have the EuroLeague level talent. And so to kind of call them coach of the year is kind of hard. I'll, I, so I actually have two more names, and you
Mhm.
actually have one of those names, and so I'll move on to you and see what you have to
Yeah.
say.
I guess you were mentioning Magro because he's been a coach for I don't know how old is he, but since he was 22 years old, he's been on the benches. So he also was the best coach in Serie A in a, a couple years ago in Brescia. So he's very differential, and he takes his team to another competitive level. I think he needed some time to adjust with Wolves, but now he's showing that he can make his team very competitive. And as you said, that's something that I was talking with you of the record because EuroLeague level teams. Is it fair to consider a coach that is meaning without meaning in a bad way, only doing his job with the EuroLeague caliber team? Because if you have the tools and the players, you're not making any difference that you could do with a team of a lower level. But in my opinion, because of course, if you guys listen this podcast weekly, you know that I'm from Valencia and I follow Valencia a lot. There's a lot of difference between Valencia basket last year or a couple of years ago and now. And I'm talking about their play style. They play a lot different level basketball right now. But another name that I have is Ty Harrelson. I know Ulm had a very bad October. They were almost every game far away from Germany or their home. But Harrelson is managing, is like continuing the ratiopharm Ulm philosophy, and I think he's managing the names and the possibilities the team has very well.
Yeah, for sure. Of the two EuroLeague level teams, I would definitely say Martinez. Harrelson definitely taking over a new team,
Yeah.
and then and also you have two really young players who are very talented, but they are young players,
Yeah.
and to have such to be leaning on those guys, those youngsters, and to be doing what they're doing. It would be really interesting to see if they didn't go on that USA road trip, so that they still had all those road games in a row, and you add that on top was really because then the Besiktas game is not basically what 36 hours after the cup loss. It's not on Monday, it's then on Wednesday or Tuesday. It just changes a whole bunch of things. But anyway, I really think that the other guy that I think deserves a mention is Freddie Foto from Borg. They lost Recherche, they lost a lot of that team. They kept Benitez, they kept Corby, Salash, Kokila, but they brought in a lot of different pieces, and they're right there in the mix. They're third in the standings. They're right behind Jerusalem. And the finalists from last year, losing that many guys, to have him right still there in the mix. That's why I think he deserves a mention in there. All right, let's go to MVP. I'll let you start.
I I have like the two opposite ways of imagining an MVP, because there's always this guy that no matter the result, he always shines, and then there's the the reigning team, the leader team that has his go-to guy or the glue guy. In the first way, I want to mention, of course, there's no option here, Jared Harper. He's been incredible. I didn't expect this explosion of offensive level, because he was relegated last 2 years in the bench of Valencia, and now he's shining. He's averaging a lot of points, and he's been differential, and also in a very curious way, because he's, as we talked another in another occasions, he's always in the free throw line, and he's getting a lot of advantage from drawing personal fouls. And then for me, we gotta go with the most differential player on the most differential team. I gotta go with Semi Ojeleye. He's not very up in the statistical standings, but that's because he's only playing 22 minutes per game. But he's averaging 15 points, 6 boards. He's 40% from the 3-point line. and he's the go-to guy for Valencia, and you don't even notice that he's the star of Valencia. That's the work he does, and I gotta go with both of them just because one always shines. It's true that Hapoel Jerusalem has a good record, 5-3 if I'm not wrong,
Yeah.
and then Valencia is unbeaten.
6-2 actually. 6-2 actually.
6-2, sorry.
Yep.
And Valencia has a semi-OJLA and NBA caliber player that is playing in the EuroCup, basically.
I have a feeling that the Valencia guys will just cancel each other out, and that's why I would kind of be surprised if a Valencia player actually does win it.
Exactly.
I actually kind of feel like the Bahcesehir guys would also cancel each other out. There's Odyssey, there's also Panitka, who have both been really great this season. Uh, in my eyes, Harper is the clear number one because even though he's on a great team, he's really, beyond,
Mhm.
playing at that much higher of a level. There are some other guys that I wanted to throw out there just because, I don't want to just talk about the top teams, but kind of depending on where they finish. And one guy is Xavier Simpson from Cluj.
Of
If
course.
Cluj makes it to, let's say, the semifinals, it's going to be a big part because of him. And then there's two guys from Wolves who right now are kind of, people who have been listening to the show know I'm a Wolves fan, I guess, right? And that's Andrew Andrews, really one of the best names in
Yeah.
all of basketball, and Anthony Cohen. They're right there, each other. One is does they kind of pretty much do help each other out and stuff. There's a couple other names that I wanted to throw out there. We don't know what's going to actually happen with Jonathan Motley. He hasn't been
Mhm.
cleared, and he was an MVP candidate for Tel Aviv before. Basically, there's this whole situation of whether or not Tel Aviv is going to clear him, allow him to move to Partizan. I think, right? Is where he was going to go.
Gillick. The story has changed, and Sam
Well,
Starania.
whatever. If he's cleared to go, if he
Yeah.
plays, and there's a reason why we can maybe say he might play because obviously we have a coach and we're going to change. We're going to do that in a couple of. So he's one guy. Another dark horse, and this is if Turk Telekom can turn it around. They're 4-4. Don't be shocked if Brian Angola is maybe in there as well. In his 4 games since he's come over from Tel Aviv, he's got 20 points, 56% on 3-pointers, five rebounds, almost 5 assists, more than a steal, and he's drawn 9 fouls per
And
game.
and he just arrived with the
And
season started.
he's been there 4 games. So if
Yeah.
they can turn it around, if they can be, also a semifinal team, and it's because of him, he could come charging in, and he'll have been there long enough that he needs to come. We might have to revisit this maybe around the February the window. But so yeah. Anything else? Anything else before we kind of move on to sort of the other topics? Any other with the awards or whatnot?
I'm I, I'm very happy with everything you said. Of course, we could talk about defensive impact or something like that, but that those are like the 5 guys we gotta put an eye on. As you said, some Bahcesehir guys or Valencia guys can like change positions because they're like a very cohesive group that I although they have a lot of stars, they like cancel each other in a stats wise, not basketball wise, because that's why they are like the first teams. But we gotta see Bahcesehir, Valencia, and those 4 or 5 names. Yeah.
Yeah. All right. Let's move on to a couple of names that have changed teams or added whatnot. The biggest one, who I think this happened actually right after we were done recording. Dimitris Itoudis, obviously a very successful coach at the EuroLeague level, has taken over at Hapoel Tel Aviv. And I mean, in my, the first thing that I thought of, okay, well, they're going to start, bringing in a couple of guys because he's going to look at the team. Not saying that the team is limited at all, but he's going to look at the team and say, okay, we need this or this and this. So Itoudis is the biggest new name. We also have Adima Brima, shot blocker, joining Valencia, and I'll lean on you to gave us information on that. And another guy that has been added to a new team is Dimitris Oralek going to Cluj. And it's funny because actually in my power rankings, I said, Leet Cabelas would really love to have Orlik back. He'd been there for 3 or 4 years, and he was really this outside shooter that can score and get big points. And now he's going to Cluj. It just seemed kind of funny that I just thought about him, 3 seasons with Leet Cabelas, and averaging 15, 13, almost 14, and then more than 15 points the last 3 seasons. I'll let you go with either of those. Obviously,
Yeah.
leaning more, of course, on
I wanted
Valencia.
to comment about Itoudis because I think it's funny how timing operates in this
Uh,
time in this type of situations because Sasa Obradovic got fired from as Monaco just right after Itoudis signed with Hapoel Tel Aviv, and it's curious how these Israeli teams have to improvise through the season because of every little situation. Jonathan Motley is not little, but because any detail, and I think Apoel is like um, since the market in the off season, they are like improvising because they didn't think about Jonathan Motley in summer, but they got him, so they added more more salaries and more money for the project, and now they have an unexpected coach, so it's going to be intriguing how they end the season and with how many names that are now, and yeah, and in other topics of the market, as you said, Valencia, for example, added Amida Brima, and the move is very clear. Valencia has a very uh, marked style. So they needed some muscle and some athleticism in the paint. They have three very decent centers in Hub, Rivers, and Costello. Both a pair of them are like EuroLeague level centers, but they were lacking some athleticism, and you could see them. You could see that in games where they had to visit Barcelona and they lacked a lot in the rebounding, something they needed a lot because in the ACB League, Valencia average is 20 offensive rebounds a game. It's a lot, and they need those type of guys to emphasize in that play style. And in Amida Brima is a very curious case. I think he has a lot of story that you David and you guys should follow because this was a guy that started basketball at 16 years old in Ghana, and then he went to a high school in Miami and he averaged like 7 blocks a game. He went to UConn. He averaged also a lot of blocks, and he led the NCAA in blocks. He won the championship in 2014 with UConn. Then he tried to get to the NBA. He couldn't. He came back to Europe. Then another time he went to the G League, and I think he has a lot of potential because his adaptability. He went with Baxi Manresa these last months. So a very intriguing name that, of course, Valencia is using for the ACB League, not the EuroCup. I mean, in EuroCup, Valencia is like served. They don't need right now anything more, but this is a domestical competition move.
Yeah, and I mean, like you said, it does give them a really athletic shot blocker,
Yeah,
rim protector that they kind of didn't have. Yeah, it does. I mean, obviously, with such a big name, and also you have it's perfect timing too because you have the window where you can kind of work with him and he
exactly.
can look at the team and everything else. And Orlik, imagine him and Salin, out on the wings. you can't help on anybody now, so that's going to be a fun ad, and I really look forward to seeing what he's able to do. Hopefully, he's 34, but he still averaged 15 and a half points last year in the EuroCup for Elite Cabela's. All right, so national team, and again, like I said, we'll kind of stick to the EuroBasket 2025 qualifiers, and a couple of big teams have new coaches, but we'll actually start with the reigning champions, Spain. Obviously, the situation pretty well there. Spain are
Yeah.
in danger. They are in serious danger. They lost in their first two games. Of course, I don't have that called up right now, but they lost in their first two games of the qualifiers and face really, uh, yeah, a kind of a difficult situation. They don't have any superstar power because the EuroLeague guys aren't there, and really, it's just the EuroCup games guys plus really Unicaja guys.
Yeah.
And if I'm Slovakia, I'm not looking into those two games. It's two games against Slovakia. And I'm not looking at them saying, "Oh my God, this is mighty Spain." So your thoughts on Spain and obviously even just the idea of Slovakia, taking down Spain twice is totally improbable. But if
Mm.
they were to win one game, and then I'll let you go after this, if they win one of those two games, and they do have to by more than what Spain beat them. Like if they win the tiebreaker between them, then Spain definitely have to finish ahead of the another team as well. So your
Yeah.
thoughts on
If
Spain?
if there's some definition of the word intriguing, it's this list of players. There are some 2000 something guys here. We talked about Sergio de la Rey as a rising star, and now he maybe be one of the go-to guys here because there are like 5, 6 guys that are not even 21 years old. And yeah, as you said, there are some ACB league common names like Carlos Alocen, EuroCup guy with Gran Canaria, Yankuba Sima, Tyson Perez, and some names that are very consistent but not differential for a competition like this. I know we are talking about Slovakia. A priori, they are like a low caliber team, but this Spanish national team hasn't played any game together because yeah, in FIBA windows we usually see different teams as we do in real competitions, but this team is very new. There's a generational change in Spain, and we see it here, and we see it also in that there's only one guy in the NBA from Spain, that is Santi Aldama. We used to have like 3, 4, 5 guys, and now this is a team that has a lot of role guys, role players, and I don't know who's going to be differential to win in a 2 game series against Slovakia that is going to be very tight for me. I don't think it's gonna be easy, and I think Sergio Scariolo took a little bit of risk with a lot of young bands. So intriguing is the word for me. I don't know what to expect.
Belgium and Latvia are the other two teams, both 2
Yeah,
and 0.
and
So
and
and
Spain will
you're gonna have to finish ahead of Slovakia. Now, obviously, one of the
exactly.
biggest news for Slovakia is Vladimir Bocianski, who obviously knows the league, those players from playing with Joventut.
Mhm.
There's also Dojole. There's also
Pavelka,
Earring. There's Malovec,
Thomas Pavelka, I think.
Pavelka. It's not a who's who of superstars, but like
But
we
this is
said, neither is the Spanish team.
exactly, this is a
So
battle of role guys.
yeah, exactly. And Slovakia, zero pressure.
Yeah.
Spain, all the pressure in the world. All right, so three of the biggest teams in the world, the world champions plus the the silver medalists, and then so world champions Germany, hey,
Mhm.
France, the silver medalists, and Lithuania all have new coaches. Those coaches being Germany, Alex Mumbrú, who obviously you know pretty well because he was coaching at Valencia, taking over at Germany. And then there's the Borg coach, Freddie Fouteau, taking over from Vincent Collet, and Rimas Kaukinas. No, that's not right. Rimas
Good
Kurtanitis
night. Yeah.
is taking over from what's his name? The former Žalgiris.
Activities.
Yeah, activities. Exactly. Thoughts on those
Yeah.
guys? I mean, obviously,
Uh,
three superpower in world basketball.
Yeah, these FIBA windows are going to be very interesting because there are some debuting coaches, and one of them is Alex Mumbrú. Very surprising signing here because Mumbrú didn't end well in Valencia. We Everyone thought that Mumbrú was like declining. We know he's very young, but his figure wasn't that big enough to take the charge of a world champion team. And also, then it was a surprise for me that Kurtinaitis came to the Lithuanian national team. I thought there was going to be a generational change here. He's like 64, 65 years old. And it's also intriguing how he's going to manage these 4 years until the 2028 Olympics.
Yeah,
With that age.
agree on all that. And France have a a generation change as well. You know, you have the two kids that for '06, Noah Sang, and then also you have Nolan Troyer. So they're both in the squad. So yeah, they're obviously France is pretty clear out
Yeah.
ahead. Uh, Lithuania, they would actually be eliminated if they lose twice, and Estonia beat Poland twice. Is it going to happen? Not saying it will, but it is out there. All right. Anything else you're watching national team window wise?
Uh, of course, I'm going to watch Italy. I think there's some guys that are very interesting. Also Greece, but they are almost qualified. Only Poland, Latvia, Finland, and Cyprus are qualified, if I'm not wrong. But the main thing for me is Germany, Spain, and Lithuania. Those are the teams that are have something new to bring us, and they're going to be very interesting. Yeah.
That's national team window. We wanted to get a podcast out this week, and usually what we do at the end of the podcast is we talk about the round in advance that's coming up, and we actually have now round 9 coming up on, don't forget, Thursday and Friday. Actually, mainly Thursday. There's 9 of the 10 games are on Thursday, the 28th. And then there's the Budućnost Wolves game on Friday, the 29th. So most of the games, 9 of the 10, are on Thursday. So let's just kind of uh, talk through those games. What do
There's
you we have the big matchup that we were hoping for with Borg hosting
Yeah.
Valencia. Borg, though, is 1-3 in their last 4 games, and obviously meeting up with a Valencia team that is continues to roll. So, what do you think about the top games for round 9?
Yeah, it's going to be very interesting that Bourges Valencia game, and not because of the level, but because of how their players are going to return from the FIBA windows. Bourges has some guys in the windows, Panza, Hugo Benitez in France, but Valencia has like 10 guys.
Is that
Uh,
what they have? 10 guys around the world. Mhm.
they literally have 10 guys in the FIBA windows. uh, Valencia is like the very next level to the EuroLeague level. So every guy from Valencia is like in these FIBA windows because EuroLeague players and NBA players cannot be called. So it's very logical. That's going to be
Is
interesting.
Montero going to the Dominican?
Yeah, everyone. So
Badio down to Mexico, is Senegal playing this round? I know not all the FIBA EuroBasket.
I don't know. You got me, but
Okay. Yeah, but so a lot of guys. Yep.
yeah. And then one game I'm going to look is that the Gran Canaria against Treffel Sopot. Treffel Sopot has one opportunity left not to finish the first half without any win, unfortunately and unfairly, because as you have mentioned a lot of times, they had a very bad luck. They lost two bad games, and Gran Canaria is a very good test for their level. And again, they have an opportunity not to be the only only team without any win.
I did my taking the charge, the updated power rankings, and when I was looking at Gran Canaria, I didn't even realize. So if you take away their 47-point win over Ulm, their plus minus is and their 13-point loss to Tel Aviv, their plus minus is 7.
It's crazy.
They've had 6 games that have been decided by 3 or fewer points, and they're 5-1 in those games. I didn't realize, okay, you're like, oh yeah, they won again. It was tight. But then I sat down, and you can't look at that number because that 47-point win over Ulm. And then the other one was a 13-point loss. You take away, it's a plus minus 7. Actually, sorry, if you include the 13-point loss. So yeah, if Sopot and Sopot have been able to stay in games for a while, if Gran Canaria cannot put this game away, which they haven't put anybody away except an absolutely exhausted Ulm team. Otherwise, they haven't been able to put anybody away. I got Tel Aviv with Itoudis, his first game, 2 weeks with the team, more or less, 10 days, whatever, at 5-3 against Ulm at 4-4. You also have Bahcesehir against Joventut. Joventut's still only 3-5. They're not in the playoffs right now, so they need to get some wins. I don't think they're going to get this one, but it's there. And the other one is Turk Telekom at 4-4 against Jerusalem at 6-2. So some big games on the schedule.
Yeah, Bahcesehir Joventut is a very, very good game with that addition of Sam Decker that sooner or later he's going to leave back to London, but the time they got him is going to be very positive for them. And yeah, another job opportunity for Joventut to show that they can, as they always do, show the EuroCup level they have. And yeah, Turk Telekom against Hapoel Jerusalem. Almost every game that involves both Hapoels are very interesting because there are like mini exams, mini tests for every team. They have the opportunity to settle a certain level to show the rest of the teams. And yeah, it's a very well-rounded round, but this is going to be like the round that makes the difference at the end of the half, with some packed standings, mostly in Group A. Group B is more determined right now, but Group A is very interesting. And yeah, we gotta watch both Hapoels, Joventut, Valencia, Bourg. Almost every team matters here.
Yep. All right. Just throwing it out there for those who follow the EuroCup. There are 2 features that I have written up this week. One of them's on Noah Seng, and the other one is on Asilis Toliopoulos. So go check out those 2 features on those guys. Sergio, why don't you let everybody know where they can find you on the social medias?
Yeah, Llebres 11, Lebres 11.
And I am at Hein News, and it's HEINNEWS. And a tad bit longer this week, but we did have a lot of stuff that we wanted to talk about. Sergio,
Much
thanks.
needed.
Enjoy the national team games,
You too. It's going to be interesting. Yeah.
and we'll talk after round 9.
Yeah. Goodbye.